Zelda, former personal assistant to Nelson Mandela, has released a poignant and insightful book called What Nelson Mandela Taught Me. This memoir offers a unique perspective and celebration on Madiba's life and his legacy. Let's dive into the stories and the lessons learned. Welcome to the show, Zelda. It's so lovely to see you.
Thank you, Zurada. Thank you very much for having me.
Your book, I have no doubt, is inspiring millions of South Africans and billions of people around the world. Please share with us what was your intention behind writing the book?
Well, you know, in 2015, I had a faux pas on Twitter and sent a series of very badly worded tweets.
Yeah.
And I was essentially cancelled. But one of the very prominent questions that came from the experience was when people asked me, have you learned nothing from Nelson Mandela? As if I'm the only one supposed to learn anything. But
yeah.
Anyway, so that made me to pause and think, but what have I actually learned from him? And am I able to put that down in words?
Yeah.
So that led, it's about 10 years later now, but that led to this book. And hopefully people will find inspiration and learn from my mistakes and my lessons as well.
Yeah. Zelda, I love that. And isn't it interesting how we can always look back in retrospect when we connect the dots and we take the mess in our life and we turn it into a message? So you went through a mess with what had happened on Twitter, you say, and you turned that into a message. And Madiba did that in so many ways as well, didn't he?
Exactly. Isn't he the best example of turning tragedy into triumph and just his resilience in it all? And I had to go through this experience for me to learn from it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as much as it was a very, very unpleasant experience, I'm very grateful for it because it led me to introspection and dealing with my own demons as well.
And how powerful is that? Please speak to us in terms of that, like when you take something like adversity that Madiba went through as well, and yourself, I mean, you're an example of that too. How does that empower one and leave purpose in your life?
Well, you only have to look at Madiba's experience in prison, really, to answer that, Zurada. The thing for me was that Madiba realized that they are stuck in prison. So he accepted the situation, first of all, and then secondly, he decided, but how can I turn this situation into a learning experience? You know, and he realized that the people I surround myself with all come from different walks of life, with different life experience. So we can all learn from each other. And I think that for me is key to dealing with a situation like this. It is what it is. I've made a big mistake, but how do I learn from it? And how do I take from what other people say to me? Am I listening sufficiently to them? Do I take in? Am I on this learning curve? So it's a good way, you know, in a storm like that, to focus on yourself in your own life and to reassess things. And I think Madiba was a brilliant example of doing that in prison and overcoming the adversity.
Yeah. I haven't written a book, but I have heard that people who write books really go through a transformational personal journey. Have you learned more about yourself or remembered things about Madiba whilst writing this book?
Absolutely. You know, writing a book, people think you just write a few pages and, you know, it all comes together and I'll be waiting for your book one day. And it doesn't work like that. You know, I started really 10 years ago and I put pen to paper. And then after about 6 months, you read it and you are so disgusted by what you wrote that you discard it completely. And then some time passes and then you go back to it and you think, but wait, there's some truth in it. But the whole thing about this book for me was, you know, coming to terms with certain things that I'll face for the rest of my life because of my identity in South Africa. You know, coming to terms with the fact that I am a white South African and I will have bias and prejudice for the rest of my life, and I need to deal with that and I need to be aware of that. And how do I turn that into, you know, helping other people to also overcome their prejudice and their bias? Because even Madiba wasn't without these. So this process for me was really, you know, coming to understand that even Madiba had mistakes and we shouldn't forget about that. He made mistakes and he also had prejudice and bias, but how do we learn from him in our own life now? So, you know, for me, that was the writing process, and it was hard to write some of these things because coming to terms with yourself is a difficult process.
It's vulnerable.
But you have to be extremely vulnerable, and otherwise, I mean, it's fake, you know. But I can say after writing this book that you know, I'm on a continuous path of growth and change, and that's what I accept after this journey.
And that's what we're here for, aren't we? If we're not looking towards something that we can grow towards too, like the sunshine, you know, what's the point of life? So there's purpose in that. I'd love to ask you, what do you hope that readers will most take away from this book in terms of resilience, in terms of learning lessons, in terms of adversity? What would you like to most see?
I would like people South Africans to remember where we come from. You know, and it's important for me that we accept our past, that we, you know, accept this is what we've been through, and that we reconcile with our own past, and then decide deliberately, as Madiba lived with intent every single day. He didn't live a life of convenience. He lived a life of intent. You know, and I'd like us all to look at his example and remain hopeful. And we are in a wonderful place in South Africa at the moment. I'm very optimistic about the future of South Africa.
So
and I hope we can take from him if that lesson from him. You know, if he could survive 18 of the 27 years in that little concrete cell on Robben Island, how do I dare give up hope? So for me, that is the whole message we need to take from him.
So beautiful. Madiba was not a prison of the mind, and sometimes we can have the most freedom in the world, but if we are imprisoned in our minds, then we are in prison. And I think that's what's so powerful about what you're saying. For you, that, you know, that spent 19 years by his side, what a beautiful crossing of paths you've both had in your lifetime.
I remain privileged. I remain still, you know, very, very in awe of Madiba, and it's very surreal still, even to me, that I mean, I'm an ordinary person, but that I had this opportunity.
Yeah. Zelda, I would like to end by just saying this. We are in awe of Madiba, but I would also like to take this moment to say we are in awe of you. So we celebrate you too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. In the spirit of the festive season, we are giving you the opportunity to win a copy of What Nelson Mandela Taught Me. Simply, you have to reply to the competition posts on the Afternoon Express Facebook, Instagram, or X pages by letting us know what have you learnt from Madiba. Remember to also use the hashtag Afternoon Express in your reply, and T's and C's apply and can be found on afternoonexpress.co.za. Stay tuned, because after the break we make the most delicious lemon meringue trifle.